another very crucial matter, which is the issue of election. I had on the program yesterday Mr. Festus Okoye, who works with INEC, and he was talking about the glitch that happened in the transmission of results via the IREV portal, which caused a lot of stir, and a lot of Nigerians are asking the question, what really happened? There are 3 elections on that day. 2 were successfully transmitted via the IREV. The other, on the presidential election, several weeks after, were not properly transmitted to the IREV portal. Let me get your view on our electoral process. Consistent election is one of the building blocks of a democracy. What do you think is going on?
I am very, very reluctant to speak about the report of the EU observer team, because for me, it smacks of colonial mentality for us in this age and time to be celebrating the reports of European Union observer. I mean, I have found reports in the local media much more credible than the report of the EU. And so we shouldn't waste our time debating what the European observers fund. I mean, for instance, they are saying about 97 people were killed. The local media have reported 137 people, and that has been confirmed by the human rights community. And I can point out other areas that one cannot rely upon. But what is important is that INEC is already put to task before the Presidential Election Tribunal to justify what happened with respect to the transmission of election results. And I'm not in a position, to make a categorical statement because of ethical consideration. As a senior lawyer, I cannot use your medium to make definitive pronouncement on matters that are pending before a properly constituted court of law. So I would rather keep my own opinion for now until the court has been able to determine the veracity of the claim of INEC. Thank you.
Let me get your view on the wreck in Adamawa, Sokoto, and Abia State. INEC itself had come out to say there are investigations, especially on the Adamawa wreck, and they have enough. There's a report on the investigation from the police, and perhaps they have enough to be able to prosecute that matter. How much of an impact, Mr. Falano, is that scenario on our election, on our democracy?
Well, under the Electoral Act 2022, I think Section 145, INEC is empowered to prosecute electoral offenders, whether they are INEC chiefs or resident electoral commissioners or whatever. So once the police has concluded the investigation, the report will be turned to INEC for prosecution of those who are indicted. And I'm aware that the INEC has set up a prosecution team, including lawyers drawn from the EFCC, ICPC, and others, to prosecute electoral offenders. The Nigerian Bar Association has submitted names of lawyers in all the 36 states of the Federation and the Federal Capital Territory to assist in the prosecution of electoral offenders. So I expect that the reports of the indicted resident electoral commissioners will be submitted to the committee so that they can be, those who are indicted will be arraigned as soon as possible. Because unless we have sanctions for impunity, we're not going to stop the manipulation of elections in our country.
Mr. Falano, INEC itself had said they will go through, in fact, they will begin an internal procedure. It will begin in July and it will end sometimes on the end of August. an internal procedure, an administrative process of looking at what went wrong and what went right. And when we look at it, the kind of money, out of the no money situation that Nigeria is in, that the nation invested in an election, do we deserve better as a people? The kind of election that INEC delivered to this nation in February and March of this year.
Well, INEC itself has admitted publicly that, and the way it put it is that there were technological and procedural challenges. INEC, with profound respect, conducted elections in 2023 that would have been the best in recent time, but for the failure of the system to transmit the result of the presidential election. Device machines were distributed, it captured voters, people voted, even though there was violence promoted by political leaders in many parts of the country. And there were threats. Some voters were prevented from casting their votes. That cannot be blamed on INEC, but on the security forces. But all those who committed those electoral offenses are required, are expected to be prosecuted. We spent about 300 billion naira on the elections we had twice. I have suggested, and this is what has just taken place in Sierra Leone, that our 4 elections, presidential, governorship, National Assembly, and State of Assembly elections, can be held in one day. Sierra Leone has just done that, and Nigeria can do it, so that we can save a lot of cost. But again, unless you go back to the drawing table this time around, where did we go wrong, or where did INEC go wrong? Can we now have full electronic voting, full deployment of technology, so that once the machine is fully deployed, BVAS machine, as accreditation, election has taken place, and the results are transmitted to the central server of INEC. All you will need to do when you want to prove your election petition is simply to get the report of the collected from the BVAS machine and the report of transmitted result, and you put to tribunal. It should be possible for you to prove your petition in 2 weeks, in 14 days, like it is done in Kenya. But once you are required to call 150 witnesses, you are going to be in trouble. And that is why we must, at the end of the ongoing judicial proceedings, we must go back to the drawing table. Don't wait till 2026. We must start now to reform the electoral process so that we won't go back to this kind of shameful experience once again.
Let me take you to yet another issue, and it is the investigation, suspension, and arrest of Mr. Godwin Emefiele and Mr. Abdulrasheed Bawa. Godwin Emefiele, the governor of the CBN, Abdulrasheed Bawa, the suspended EFCC chairman. Now, it's been 2 weeks that Abdulrasheed Bawa has been with the DSS, which they confirm. Mr. Emefiele is over 2 weeks. Legally speaking, are these the right procedures?
Well, under the Administration of Criminal Justice Act, if you are going to detain a Nigerian beyond 24 hours in a place like Lagos or Abuja and in other places where you do not have courts within a radius of 40 kilometers, you are required to approach a magistrate court to ask for a remand order to allow for investigation. to that extent, the State Security Service can be said to have obtained court orders to detain them. But for how long can this last? And I have personally expressed my position, told the government that you must handle these cases in line with the provisions of the law so that you do not give room, you do not allow loopholes to be exploited in the course of the investigation. I wouldn't want to go further because I want to say, Seun, that I've also been contacted by some of the parties involved to see what can be done to ensure that these matters are properly prosecuted. As far as I'm concerned, investigation should be speedily conducted, more so where allegations are made. I do not expect any delay in the investigation or the very serious allegations that have been made. All right. I mean, the case of Mr. Emefiele, the State Security Service last year had alleged his involvement in terrorism, financing, and so on and so forth. Please quickly do something about that. With respect to money laundering and other offenses, take them to the appropriate agencies of the government. In the case of Mr. Bawa, we haven't been told the offense or the offenses he committed. So I cannot speak very confidently with respect to the gentleman, except to ask the government or the agencies involved to speed up the investigation and have them arraigned in court if they are indicted. Otherwise, you must grant them bail.
Mr. Falano, I'll take you to a corridor where you serve as, well, where you practice, which is the legal corridor. And I'd like to remind you of this video, and I'd like to get your view on the impact on the Nigerian judiciary. And this is what Senator Bukachua said on the floor of the Senate. It's perhaps been worsened by what Senator Rochas Okorocha also said, although the former president of